10 steps to make your D&D game more grimdark, today on Dungeon Craft. Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I'm Professor Dungeonmaster, and this channel is about playing the ultimate game of D&D and other tabletop role-playing games.
And I'm Deathbringer. Level up your game by subscribing and hit the bell icon to be informed when we upload new videos.
If you're a fan of this channel, you know I love grimdark fantasy. I like my fantasy with a hard edge, where the thought that your character might not make it out of that dungeon is a real possibility. And that's what I prefer to run as a game master, but it's also what I prefer to play. One of my patrons, Baldrage, also loves a grimdark game, and he went through the trouble of going through the entire Caves of Carnage campaign series, you can get a link to that below, to find out how I did it. He went through with a notebook and a pen, wrote everything down, and wrote the script to this episode. And because I'm very lazy, I said, heck, I'll just use it as an episode. And he not only refers to the Caves of Carnage, but some of my other videos and Game of Thrones as well. So let's check out Baldrage's advice, 10 steps to make your game more grimdark. 1. Use human opponents whenever possible. This may reduce your player's propensity to be murder hobos, because it's a lot ickier feeling to kill a human being. It also provides more opportunities for roleplay, because these creatures are creatures you can communicate and negotiate with, and they can beg for their lives. Human opponents are more plausible and grounded than your typical fantasy monsters. In the Caves of Carnage, many of the monsters are just humans who've devolved into a state of cannibalism. Using humans as adversary provides more opportunity to demonstrate mankind's inherent potential for inhuman behavior. People might not feel bad about torturing a lizard man, but if it's a human being, it's kind of icky, and that's what makes it grimdark. 2. Never use monsters straight out of the monster manual. The unknown is always scarier than the familiar. Players' unfamiliarity will heighten the fear and tension, which are important for creating a sense of vulnerability. So rename those monsters, reskin them, give them different tactics or abilities, or make up new monsters altogether. Also, instead of making scenarios which are like a monster zoo, you might consider sticking to just one monster or type of monster per session. If it's a werewolf scenario, for example, make the scenario entirely about that. Just have there be one werewolf that the players are hunting instead of a whole bunch of them. That keeps the monster unique. 3. Humanize the adversaries, even the monsters. When creating an adversary, always ask yourself, what do they do when they're not killing player characters? What do they do to pass the time? Making the player characters realize their adversaries have a life outside of fighting PCs raises the moral stakes and may again contribute to reducing murder hoboism. Red Fergus, the bandit chief, is a vicious psychopath, but he has a pregnant girlfriend and he likes to play chess. The goblins in the Caves of Carnage are mutated halflings who like to spend their free time watching scorpions fight, and they pray to their god, the Great Grub, to deliver them from their desperate plight. 4. Make the NPCs morally gray, or give them a flaw. Reduce the number of NPCs that are purely good or irredeemably evil. The Munchberger brothers are prosperous merchants and the party's primary employer, but they make their fortunes selling drugs. The witch is the character's mentor, but she's a bully and a drug addict. The castellan of the keep permits the caves to exist because it forms an important part of the keep's economy and commerce. And that same rule applies to adversary NPCs. Brunner, the scholar, genuinely cares about the goblins' oppression and plight. Countess Claudia van Hammerstein is actually a capable ruler who improves the welfare of her peasants, except for the ones she murders and bathes in their blood. Cersei Lannister is a cruel and ruthless ruler, but she loves her children. 5. The PCs themselves have to be vulnerable. Grimdark doesn't mean the players have to die or be rendered helpless, but the players have to believe their characters can die as a result of a poor choice or an unlucky die roll. In Game of Thrones, Ned Stark, Catelyn Stark, Robb Stark all die. Arya, Jon, Sansa, and Bran, they're each powerful in different ways, but they're all extremely vulnerable. They careen from one catastrophe to another, barely surviving each encounter. If you want to bring this feeling that death is a possibility of any time to your tabletop, 2 suggestions. 1, roll out in public, so the players know you are not fudging the die rolls. And if you roll a natural 20, they're going to take a critical hit. The other option is to eliminate resurrection, reincarnation, wish, anything that could bring a player character back to life. Once the player character is dead, they are dead, and it is final. 6. Use the character creation process to demonstrate that the world is a brutal, unforgiving place where nothing is going to be given. Everything has to be earned. No fudging ability scores, start them with no armor, no equipment, no money. Use a character funnel like in Dungeon Crawl Classics, where the characters start as 0 level humans with just D6 hit points, no rerolls for hit points there, and they have occupations like rat catchers, sin eaters, or gong farmers. One of the ideas I've imported from 5e Hardcore mode, available on DriveThruRPG right now, is the idea of pure hit points. Constitution doesn't give you bonus hit points, and every level, including first, you have to roll for hit points, and you don't re-roll on a 1 or a 2. You keep whatever you roll. Now, some people are going to say, what fun is it to play a character with just 1 hit point? In my opinion, it's tons of fun. If you gave me a choice between a barbarian with an 18 strength and some guy with just 1 hit point, I would definitely play the 1 hit point guy every time. And this is how I do it. First off, I'd name him Lucky. Then I'd give him a family, like 7 kids, and his wife is pregnant with the 8th and is due to give birth any day now. And the reason he became an adventurer is because the locust swarm came and ate all his crops, and a fever killed all his pigs, so now he has no choice but to dig desperately in holes in the ground and fight monsters before his landlord forecloses on his land. And I'd say to the other players, I wrote these letters for my wife and children. Please, promise me that if I don't make it out, you'll give it to them. And if we do manage to get any treasure, please, bring my share back home. I still owe my lord 1,000 gold pieces. And my youngest son, little Pubert, born prematurely. Poor thing can't breathe without the drugs from the apothecary. They're so expensive, and he needs them every week. Now that provides the Game Master and my fellow players with great role-playing opportunities, because if this guy dies, they're going to inherit his entire family. So it probably would result in the players just forming a protective circle around Lucky so he doesn't bite the dust. And that's kind of the point of the Grimdark game. The characters are less superheroes and more like everyday people trying to survive. And I think if you've got a player who could complain that their stats are too low, you've got a player who is A, unimaginative, and B, they stink. 7, make magic rare and dangerous. I like magic users to be mysterious. In my world, they're hunted and killed on sight, mostly by clerics. Spells have to be found or taught by a mentor. They just don't pop into the wizard's head when they gain a level. And magic items are super rare and mostly cursed. In my long-running campaign, we've been going since the 90s, absolutely no one has any kind of magic weapon or armor at all. Potions are a thing, but that's about it. If my players found a magic sword, they'd probably fling it in the nearest lake and be afraid to use it in combat. 8. Travel is dangerous and should never be taken for granted. Don't gloss over travel. It's an opportunity to foreshadow and illustrate the grim nature of your world. In my episode, The Bone Road, the player characters can meet flagellants, plague-stricken peasants, come across a hanged witch, or a cruel and capricious noble, or they could just be ambushed. When my players have to travel, they know I have the Bone Road encounters in my Game Master's notebook, so they're careful. They will travel in caravans if they can, or get a coach, and they'll pay money so that they can arrive at their destination sooner and safely. And that is what the Middle Ages was like. It was perilous. 9. No fairy tale endings. One of the themes of grimdark literature is the protagonists have to make a decision between a set of really bad choices. So even if they win, they still kind of lose. In my bandit adventure, the player characters have to rescue Rowena, the daughter of a wealthy and powerful merchant, and she's fallen in love with Black Angus, the leader of the bandit gang. So when they rescue her, she will stab them in the back, and if they bring her back home, she's only going to escape again to seek Black Angus out again. In the Caves of Carnage, if the players defeat the big baddie, the Vermin Lord, the Munchburger brothers swoop in and start mining Moonstone, and soon the entire empire is ravaged by drug addiction. In Game of Thrones, the Night King is defeated and Cersei is overthrown, but Daenerys goes mad and destroys King's Landing. That kind of decision where you have to choose between the wrong option and the even worse option, that's one of the essential qualities to a grimdark game. 10. Don't overdo it. Leave the truly horrible stuff to the players' imaginations. Always apply common sense and good taste, and I realize that differs widely from group to group, but you know what I mean. There is a line that your group just shouldn't cross or that you don't feel comfortable crossing. For me, that's any kind of violence against children, graphic torture, or non-consensual sexual situations. This is just a place I just don't go. In episode 2 of The Bone Road, the characters are captured by goblins, and I simply said, they torture you. You wake up chained in a cell. What do you do? There's no reason to graphically describe what happened to them. Leave that to the player's imaginations. Whatever they can imagine is probably more horrible than anything you can describe. So thanks Baldrage for this great episode, and all the patrons for making Dungeon Craft possible. If you're interested in supporting the channel and you want to check out the extended version of this video, you can check out our Patreon link below. Also below, you'll find links to the Dungeon Craft Facebook group. Of course, if you enjoy this content, give it a thumbs up, like it, share it, drop a comment. We always appreciate that. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Professor Dungeonmaster. I'll see you next time, and until then, may all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again. Grimdark. This guy's game is practically Candyland. But if you want more Dungeon Craft, click on these videos.